You're staring at your phone, rereading the message where he betrayed you. Maybe it was a lie you uncovered. Maybe it was proof he was talking to someone else. Maybe it was the cold shift in his voice that told you everything. Your heart feels heavy, but the hardest part isn't the betrayal. The hardest part is this question burning inside you. Should you reach out or should you walk away forever? Right now, you think the power is in getting answers. You think the power is in explaining yourself one last time. You think if you say it perfectly, calmly, intelligently, he will finally understand what he lost. But I need you to slow down, because what you do in this moment will determine who truly recovers from this. There is something you don't see yet. I'm going to explain why a narcissistic personality cannot recover after betraying a super empath. And I'm also going to show you why the moment you decide never to come back is the moment the real shift begins. We'll get there. First, understand who you are. You are not just emotional, you are perceptive. You feel deeply, you give chances. You try to understand the wound behind the behavior. You don't love casually. When you attach with presence and loyalty. That is strength. But in the wrong hands, that strength gets exploited. A narcissistic personality is not attached to love. They are attached to validation. They attach to how you make them feel about themselves. Your empathy becomes their mirror. Your forgiveness becomes their safety net. Your understanding becomes the cushion that softens their consequences. So when they betray you, they believe they can simply replace you. They believe another person can give them the same admiration, the same emotional labor, the same supply. On the surface, it may even look like they're fine, calm, unbothered, moving on quickly. But here is what they misunderstand. They can replace attention. They cannot replace depth. And when you finally choose silence, something changes that they did not calculate. Silence feels brutal to you. No contact feels unnatural. It feels like abandonment. It feels like you're being cold. You may even feel guilty for not responding. That's because your nervous system is wired for connection. You want resolution. You want fairness. You want the story to make sense. But silence is not cruelty. Silence is alignment. Here is the spine line I want you to remember. Your silence is your strength. When you stop reaching out, your body reacts. You feel the urge to text. You want to check their status. You imagine what they're thinking. That anxiety is not proof you should go back. It is proof you were bonded. No contact feels hard because it removes the familiar pattern. The cycle of tension, apology, reassurance, repeat. That cycle becomes addictive, and when you remove it, your system panics. But discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is growth. Now let's talk about chasing. When you chase after betrayal, you lower your position. Not because you are weak, but because you are signaling that your standards bend under pressure. When you ask for clarity from someone who already showed you their character, you give them control over your emotional state. They may respond. They may explain. They may even apologize. But inside, something shifts. They feel chosen despite their behavior. And when someone feels chosen without accountability, they do not transform. They repeat. Chasing tells them you fear losing them more than you fear losing yourself. And that is never the position you want to be in. When you withdraw instead, you force reality to speak. You are no longer cushioning their insecurity with empathy. You are no longer softening their consequences. You are no longer available for emotional consumption. That absence does something powerful. But before we go deeper into what it does to them, we need to be honest about what it does to you. When you choose not to come back, you confront your own fear. The fear of being alone. The fear that maybe you won't find someone else. The fear that maybe you misunderstood everything. This is where most people break. Not because they love the narcissist, but because they fear the unknown more than they fear the dysfunction. Your silence is your strength, not because it punishes them, but because it stabilizes you. The moment you decide you will never come back to a place that disrespected you, your energy shifts. You stop negotiating, you stop explaining, you stop performing, and if they don't see it immediately, the dynamic changes. A narcissistic personality thrives on reaction. Positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Anger feeds them. Tears feed them. Long emotional messages feed them. But silence removes the mirror. And without the mirror, they are left alone with themselves. Right now, you may still want them to feel what you felt. You may still want them to regret it. That's human. But the deeper truth is this: when you refuse to come back, you create a loss they cannot quickly replace. We are going to talk about what happens in their mind when your absence becomes real. We are going to talk about what changes when they realize you are not returning. And we are going to talk about how to handle it if they try to come back. Because this is not just about them failing to recover. This is about you rising instead. Stepping back is not passive. It is psychological repositioning. When you remove yourself from a dynamic that fed on your empathy, you interrupt the pattern that kept it alive. Most toxic bonds survive because one person keeps supplying reassurance, explanation, and access. When you step back, you remove the fuel. At first, it will feel like you are losing something. That is your attachment system reacting. You were bonded through intensity, through uncertainty, through emotional highs and lows. Your brain learned to associate that intensity with connection. So when you withdraw, your body reads it as threat. But this is where awareness matters. The anxiety you feel is not proof you should reach out. It is proof that you are detoxing from a cycle. The psychology behind stepping back is simple. When you are always available, you become predictable. When you are predictable, you are taken for granted. When you are taken for granted, your value is assumed rather than appreciated. Scarcity creates reflection. Absence creates awareness. When you stop reaching out, something subtle begins to shift in their mind. At first, they may feel relief. They may think the tension is gone. They may assume you will return once emotions cool down. But as time passes and your silence remains consistent, curiosity begins to form. They check their phone more often. They wonder if you're talking to someone else. They question whether you meant what you said. Doubt enters where certainty used to live. And doubt is uncomfortable for someone who relies on control. When you were chasing, they felt secure. They knew you were emotionally invested. They knew they could trigger you. They knew they could pull you back. But when you go quiet, when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, they lose that certainty. Your silence is your strength, not because it hurts them instantly, but because it removes their emotional leverage. Over time, the absence becomes real. The ego that once felt admired begins to feel ignored. And being ignored is far more destabilizing than being confronted. Confrontation still provides attention. Silence does not. Now let's address the part that challenges you the most, the urge to text, the urge to call. The urge to send that one final message that will make everything clear. When the urge hits, it will feel urgent, it will feel logical. Your mind will tell you that closure depends on one more conversation. But urgency is anxiety looking for relief. Here's what you do. First, create a pause rule. No emotional message is sent within 24 hours of feeling triggered. You give yourself one full day before acting. That space protects you from impulsive decisions. Second, write the message in a journal instead of sending it. Say everything you want to say. Let it pour out. Then close the journal. Most of the time, the act of expressing it reduces the pressure. Third, regulate your body. When anxiety rises, your nervous system is activated. Take slow breaths. Move your body. Go outside. Physical regulation reduces emotional intensity. Fourth, remove access points. Mute their updates. Archive the chat. Not because you are angry, but because you are disciplined. Self-respect sometimes requires structure. Each time you resist the urge to reach out, you strengthen a muscle. That muscle is self-trust. Your silence is your strength. Now let's talk about what you should focus on daily instead of chasing. You need stability. Toxic dynamics disrupt routine, so restore rhythm. Wake up consistently. Eat properly. Sleep intentionally. Move your body. These are not small things, they are foundational. You also need identity reconstruction. When you are focused on them, parts of you are neglected. Your interests, your creativity, your friendships, reinvest in them. Not to distract yourself, but to remember who you are outside of the relationship. Reflect honestly. Where did you overextend? Where did you ignore red flags? Where did you shrink to keep peace? This is not self-blame. This is growth. A super empath evolves through insight. Strengthen your standards. Write down what respect looks like. Write down what is non-negotiable for you moving forward. When standards are clear, confusion loses power. And protect your environment. Limit conversations with people who fuel drama. Avoid constant analysis of what they're doing. Choose inputs that reinforce your strength, not your longing. Your silence is your strength. Because as you become more stable, the emotional intensity of the bond weakens. You start seeing the dynamic clearly. You recognize patterns you once defended. You notice how often you carried the emotional weight alone. Stepping back is not about punishing them. It is about recalibrating yourself. And here is the deeper truth. When you stop chasing, you stop abandoning yourself. When you stop reacting, you stop participating in the cycle. When you hold silence consistently, you allow reality to unfold without interference. We still need to talk about what happens if they come back. And what happens if they don't? Because silence reveals the truth in both directions. Now we come to the part you've been waiting for. What happens if they come back? Because sometimes they do. Not always with humility, not always with accountability, but with curiosity. A message, a soft check-in, a reminder of the history you shared. And when that moment happens, your body may react before your mind does. Your heart may soften. Old hope may whisper that this is the apology you wanted. Slow down if they come back. You do not respond with immediate access. You do not reward the return with emotional intimacy. You do not collapse into relief. You respond with calm and clarity. This is where boundaries become visible. If they want conversation, it happens slowly. If they want connection, it requires ownership of what they did, not excuses, not partial apologies. Real accountability. You ask yourself simple questions. Are their actions consistent? Are they respecting your pace? Are they demonstrating change or just expressing regret? Standards are not punishments. They are filters. If they resist your boundaries, that is information. If they try to rush you, that is information. If they minimize the past, that is information. You do not argue with information. You observe it. Your silence is your strength, because even when they return, silence has already shifted the dynamic. It has shown you whether they can tolerate losing you. It has shown you whether they come back from growth or from ego. It has shown you whether they value you or simply miss the supply. Now let's speak honestly about the other possibility. What if they don't come back? What if the phone stays quiet? What if weeks pass and there is no message, no apology, no explanation? This is where dignity becomes your anchor. Closure is not something they hand you. Closure is something you claim. You accept that their capacity was limited. You accept that their choices reflected their wounds, not your worth. You accept that love without respect is not sustainable. Moving forward does not mean you are not hurt. It means you refuse to chase clarity from someone who already showed you their character. Silence reveals truth either way. If they come back with humility, silence revealed your value. If they do not come back at all, silence revealed their limitations. In both outcomes, you gain clarity, and clarity is freedom. Your silence is your strength. You began this journey feeling betrayed, feeling confused, feeling replaced. But now you understand the structure. You see why chasing lowers your position. You see why stepping back recalibrates the dynamic. You see that when you refuse to return, you are not losing. You are realigning. Let me summarize this clearly. When you were always available, the pattern continued. When you stepped back, uncertainty entered their mind. When you resisted the urge to chase, you rebuilt self-trust. If they come back, you meet them with boundaries, pace, and standards. If they do not, you meet yourself with closure and dignity. Silence reveals truth either way. So here is your one clear action step. Commit to 30 days of disciplined silence, not to manipulate, not to test, but to strengthen yourself. During those 30 days, focus on routine, reflection, and rebuilding standards. Treat it as training. Every day you maintain your boundary, you reinforce your identity. Because this is the deeper lesson. You are not powerful because they can't recover. You are powerful because you refuse to abandon yourself. There is a quiet confidence that forms when you stop begging for understanding. There is a calm power that rises when you accept that not everyone is capable of meeting you. And there is a deep peace that settles in when you realize you will never return to a place that diminished you. Your silence is your strength, not as revenge, not as manipulation, but as alignment with your worth. Stand in that, protect it, grow from it, and when you're ready to understand how to rebuild your identity fully after emotional betrayal, watch the next video.